what I'd like to do now is I'm going to ask the four of them to kind of introduce themselves, and not just, you know, who I am, where I work, and all that kind of stuff. I'd like three things from you. I'd like to share with you your role today, okay? But talk about a little bit how you got into technology, all right? And the third thing I want you to answer, tell everybody on the audience, is what was your favorite concert of all time? See, for me, I'll start you off, and I won't do the whole first two, but my favorite concert was when I was young. It was Rod Stewart. It was in Chicago. Rod Stewart, Tower of Power, and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And what I've been to in my life, that was by far the best. So what I'd like to do is personalize the panel, get a better feel for who they are, and a little bit of their background. So who wants to start? Darla, you got the mic. Want to go?
Sure. Volunteer. So my name is Darla Morse. I have responsibility for technology for the SeaWorld Parks and Resorts Entertainment group. We have 12 parks. We just announced a hotel, so now we'll be building a hotel, a themed hotel. So I'm sure that a lot of you could give us insight to that. In my prior role, I was at Disney, so I have lots of experience kind of in the hospitality space, more in the guest-facing technology, so it's a passion of mine, because I do believe there's so much we can bring to the table for our guests and for the business. As far as favorite.
No, tell us how you got exposed to technology, how you got into the whole technology.
How did I get into it? I was actually a database administrator, so I was a techie person. And I started there, and the reason I went into leadership is because I thought I could get more accomplished there. I'm not sure that always pans out, but that was the thought. And then favorite concert I would have to say is Styx. That was pretty amazing.
You're on, Paige.
All right, good afternoon. Page Petry, and I have accountability for Marriott hotels, particularly all of the IT in our Americas portfolio, which is 3,600 hotels going from Canada down into Argentina. Keeps us busy. How I got into IT, I was actually working with our Courtyard portfolio, running their reservation centers for them. And a friend of mine who was in IT gave me a call and said, you know, we need some help. We need to upgrade our networks in all of our hotels, and we don't have anyone who's ever worked in a hotel. And so we need someone to come over and help us communicate with the hotels what they need to do. And that was how I got into technology and have stayed there ever since. Oh, favorite concert, Jimmy Buffett, a few years back.
Restaurant.
All right, well, I'm going to do a little reverse and come back to where I am now for purposes of everybody knows. But I started out actually in IT right out of college, and I was a programmer, so I was a geek too, very much a developer at Hallmark Cards. So I spent the first 14 years with Hallmark Cards and then got into the last 13 years being in hospitality and loving every bit of it from MGM. So I went from Hallmark Cards, Personal Expressions, family-oriented, private company to Sin City, what goes in Vegas stays in Vegas, to a public company. So, but also had the experience of a lot of different paths along the way with the private big companies, big ownerships, big boxes to Kimpton with little hotels and boutique and individual property owners, and so a lot of good things. And now I'm actually on my next career adventure, looking at what I'm going to be doing here, but helping out with the experiences that I've had doing some consulting right now, and also continuing to be productive on the hospitality, the HFTP board. And my best concert that I can remember, first one, Bob Seger. Awesome.
And don't say Rain.
I'm going to say Rain.
No, you
know
Rain.
it. Rich always asks me a question about music and concerts. My husband is a musician. Favorite concert, however, Eric Clapton live at Royal Albert Hall was phenomenal. Well, I guess I should have started with who am I? Hopefully you all do know. I am the global CIO for Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group and also the president of HTNG. And I've tried to meet as many of you as possible at this conference, and thank you so much for coming. It's been really an excellent event for all of us. So what else? How did I get here? I was a System 38 programmer. Don't calculate backwards. but at least it was mid-range and not mainframe, so we'll leave it at that. And I've had a long journey that's taken me to many different places in the world, from Sardinia to Hong Kong and through the cruise lines and the casino industry as well.
Okay. Today we want to encourage you to ask questions. I'm going to throw a couple questions out there in the beginning because I worked on these and I want to make sure that I ask them. But if anybody has questions, we'll have 2 mics running around the room. Just raise your hand and we'll run over there and throw the mic at you. Okay? Kris, let me go right back to you because you're the only one on the panel who had a background in the gaming world, boutique. Oh, that's true too. Okay, sorry. But you know, you're more now. You've been there too long. Okay, but don't correct me when I'm up here because it makes me look bad.
Okay.
All right?
What's the question?
No, as far as the technology initiatives, you know, the key roles, CIO, Cosmopolitan, you know, you're at MGM, right? And then, you know, the boutique hotels like Kimpton and Omni. Tell us the difference between the gaming world and the hotel world, the traditional hotel world.
So I think the biggest difference probably is in the speed and the urgency around performance and high availability. Not that it isn't in the hospitality side, but there's just a real focus because every minute on the gaming floor translates to millions of dollars. So if you have systems that are down, or if you have network that's not connecting, if you have Wi-Fi that is controlling certain things, if you have the surveillance system that goes down, you have to close down the property. So just the focus and direct connectivity to the revenue and the income is critical. I think one of the things that really moved a lot of the changes was around the loyalty too, because as in the early 2000s, as it moved from the majority of the revenue coming from gaming to the hospitality or non-gaming side, so food and beverage, entertainment, et cetera, changed the loyalty and the look at total spend too. So that was a big change.
Okay. Darla, we're going to pick on you next because, you know, the fact that, you know, you're at SeaWorld now, which is different for the crowd here because it's a theme park, it's not a traditional hotel company, but you are with Disney, which was more of a traditional operation. We'd like to tell us the differences about going to a theme park from having started out in the hotel side of life.
Well, I think, you know, both of them being theme parks, I think the big difference, obviously being at Disney, they have one of everything. So you have resorts, you have cruise lines, you have international, and then you have parks. Coming over to SeaWorld, you know, we have parks and we are just going international, so we're just starting down that path, just starting down the resort side. So what I would say is the difference is my background and training at Disney has really set me up for success where I'm at today. And you can really shortcut a lot of the problems. So you learn what not to do. You learn how to get there faster. You know how to minimize your spend on areas that you may have spent a lot of time in before. So I think that is really a comparable of opportunity when you kind of have that background. You know, Disney afforded me to have a lot of experience in spending a lot of money because they like to spend money. But they've got a big machine and they're not afraid to do that. When you come to a park that doesn't have the same budget, I think the skill set and the knowledge you bring to be able to get there quicker, faster, and ultimately produce a great product, you know, is a huge value add.
Okay, thank you. Paige? So Marriott has this large portfolio of owner-franchise relationships. How do you deal with the issue of funding innovation and technology in that environment?
So that is a daily conversation. You know, our job as a company, if you look at Marriott International, is to have great brands. And then we look at our management companies, our owners, our franchisees to run great hotels. And the challenge is, as we talk about all the technology here this week, we talked about, you know, data strategies and cloud and how you have more mobility with your customers. All of that requires, as everyone in this room knows, is a tremendous amount of funding to make that happen, especially for many of us in the room. Our hotel companies have been around for a while and we've got legacy systems. And so the challenge for us on an ongoing basis is to begin to not begin, but it needs to be a daily role for us to educate both our own executives and all of our owners and franchisees on the value that this technology brings. And I think the biggest challenge for us is to do that in terms that they understand, because they're the ones that are investing in us. And so it's It's every day, it's meeting with our owners, it's being very open to their feedback and trying to incorporate the ideas and suggestions they have. But it is a challenge, but it's something we have to do. It's the right thing to do if we want them to continue to invest in us. And so it's, again, it's our day job.
So Monika, Paige brought up legacy systems. There is this whole need to, it's an issue in the industry. This just transformation from the legacy systems, a challenge there. And I know we have talked about this, so share with the audience how you're looking at this transformation.
I think it's no different than all the hoteliers in the room who have had systems for the past 15 plus years and are looking for a way to get to that nirvana of cloud, mobile, digital. And there are parts and pieces, as we've seen throughout the event and the last few days, that are coming along very, very well. The work around rates, for example, is very exciting. But there are core pieces that are still missing. And what we're looking at doing is taking the pieces that are possible. And what I am shopping for are algorithms. So I'm very interested in the pieces of technology that can use machine learning capability, for example, and introducing those into our organization.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to entertain questions from, or I'd like the audience, if they have any questions, like to throw at the panelists, and we'd like to get that started. So is there anybody out there who wants to take a chance and ask a question? Oh, look at this. All these people promised me questions beforehand. Unbelievable. Okay, well, I have a list of mine, but... We have one. We have... Okay, sorry.
Good afternoon. It's important to recognize that we have 4 talented females on stage. And this is unusual. Our workforce tends, like our audience, to be heavily male. Is bringing more talented females into IT a priority for you in your various organizations? And if it is, how are you doing it? Thank you.
Sure, I'll go. I think that is a great question and something that starts early on. So I know for me, working with like NC WIT, New York Women in Technology, or any of the executive women's roundtables like in Dallas, or any of the other local communities that I've been involved, working with early childhood development and starting actually elementary grade school. And I found that a lot of it is more education to the parents of helping to change the stereotype, so that young children, young girls know that it's not bad stereotype or tough to get into science, technology, engineering, and math.
I'll jump in as well. It's absolutely critical to have a balance in our workforce, right, that reflects our communities today, and obviously women in the workforce is important. And I'm with Kris. I am part of the National Academy Foundation, Academy of Information Technology, and our focus is on bringing, children, male and female, through into technologies. But obviously I spend a lot of time mentoring where I can, families. I think Kris mentioned it. We need to make sure that the parents are the ones really recommending the sciences to their girls, because if not, they won't go down that path. And one of the best recommendations I can say to all of us as parents is we should never tell our children how bad we were in math, because the minute you say, I couldn't do it, they suddenly can't do it, when in actuality they just never tried. So absolutely we need a good cross-section. It's what makes our companies healthy and rich, right?
I do have to tell you one thing. John, that was a great question. Those of you who know me and have known me for a long time know I work with all women. And then they asked me to moderate this panel, and they said, hey, by the way, it's all women. It was like a thing that they thought I would be best here. I'm kind of, I'm at a point where, no, I'm okay. But I was told I couldn't ask that question. So, John, thank you very much for asking that question. That was very good. Do you have any, Ryan?
Thank you. This is a two-part question. I was just wondering, do your vendor management and vendor selection programs incorporate privacy protection as a key element for choice? And if so, what are you requesting that your vendors provide you as valid certification or proof that they are genuinely protecting employee and guest information?
So yes, that's the first part of the question. But obviously through the contract process, there's very specific language that Marriott puts in. But also as our vendors get selected and come in, we do all the security testing and making sure that the environments they're bringing in are secure as well. So our security team is responsible for that. They do the testing, and they do that testing on an annual basis as well. So if you're an ASP, there are certain things we look for, but it's both contract language and through the testing that the teams do when they bring in the products and services.
And the same. I think we would probably all align with that. We have a fairly formal process with our security team to audit, for example, if there's any type of integration. And if a vendor refuses to provide any type of access, it becomes a different conversation. So security is primary to all our decisions.
I apologize, but the question was relative to privacy protection, not to security.
But they go hand in hand, whether you're protecting personally identifiable information or other data. I think they just go hand in hand.
I would also add that that is one of the first items we bring up in contract negotiations. And it's the toughest one for both sides, by the way.
Great. I have a question for the whole panel. Every time I come to a conference like this, I get excited about the industry that we're in, the hospitality technology field. And it's really exciting. We saw some terrific things these last 3 days. And so my question to the four of you is along those lines, and that is, what do you find as the single most exciting part about the hospitality technology field today?
Not managing it.
Well, I think that when I first came into the hospitality industry in 2000, early 2002, so that the hospitality industry from a technology standpoint was probably a good 10 years behind at least the retail and consumer product goods industry as far as the use of technology. And so I think in these last 13 years, though, what has excited me is that it has gained considerably and quite fast. Still behind, still getting there, but some of the things like seeing the robot and hearing about artificial intelligence and hearing about, expert systems and really using that to drive more stronger association to the guest experience and that experience management, that's what I think is really exciting for me to see, and I think it's going to catapult us a lot farther in the hospitality industry.
The other thing I would add is I love coming into our hotels and having the hotels excited about the technology that's been deployed and coming up with better ways to see it used, ideas that they want to see incorporated into our mobile apps, so the general managers are engaged, and our executives really understand the power of the technology. They will always argue about the cost of it, but they really understand what it can do to move our brands forward. So that excites me, the fact that they're actually on board with the importance of technology.
Yeah, I would agree with Paige. I think, you saw the mobile app conversation I did earlier today. One of the great things about technology is we now in IT have a way to drive business value. And the mobile is just another revenue channel that we really haven't tapped into. So when you see the excitement of being able to know about your guest, to be more engaged with your guests and what their likes and dislikes are, and then more importantly, make that experience seamless so that when they leave, they're not writing a survey that said, oh, I waited in line for 3 hours and, this was terrible, that was terrible. They now have options. And everyone's not going to use those options, but the fact that we can provide those options, I think makes, where we're going a much better experience. And I think our guest we hear back all the time that they love that opportunity, and if they choose to use it, it's available.
I should give you a more serious answer. Many of the things have been said. There was a huge gap that I think we are narrowing, and the excitement comes from all of the opportunity. But really, what the business is about is people, and that blend of people and technology is the part that's most appealing.
Hi, first of all, great session. Tim Kinsella, Amadeus. Really enjoying this. And Darla, you mentioned earlier when you were introducing yourself how you thought that there was some great opportunities in guest engagement. And you obviously hit on that just a moment ago with mobile. And there's certainly lots of opportunities with mobile check-in, service requests, and so on. So I guess, and we're looking at a broad span of market segments that, between Mandarin and then Marriott running the gamut. So I would love to hear from each of you, maybe your thoughts on where the low-hanging fruit is, what the market's ready for, the right balance of guest engagement, choice of service versus white glove. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I'll go first. I think some of the low-hanging fruit actually is in the analytics. And so we've got rich data, and we need to move that to information, to knowledge, to hopefully wisdom, through better performance management. And better performance management gives the operations and the business of the hotels the capability of running more efficiently and more effectively, which means they're going to deliver a better guest experience. So that's where I think the low-hanging fruit is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We did a test with Beacons where we actually took 6 different guests and we basically mapped their time in our park, the duration they spent at each location they were at, and then what they did when they were there. And every one of those was a little bit different. But what we learned from an operations perspective is where we were staffing for the morning, no one was there in the far corner of the park. And it's interesting when operations sees this kind of data, they were so excited that I had to pull them back. I'm like, okay, this is just a test. But they immediately went to what if, and it was a huge awakening that they thought they knew, but what the data showed is that they really didn't know. And I think that's the opportunity we have to provide that for them.
Yeah, I might put just a little different spin just for conversation. I think, our challenge is with the portfolio at large, that can be a real good thing and it can be real difficult. So it makes turning things around quickly. I think for us, low-hanging fruit is to get things into the market quickly in very small sections of hotels, and if we need to pull them out quickly, pull them out. The challenge in our industry is that the minute you put something in a hotel, it's really not a pilot. You're live and you have to be able to interact with your customer. But I think there's a lot more opportunity for us to put things in the market and pull them out very quickly if they're not working.
Good afternoon, ladies. Fernando Perez, GMA Wireless. Worked in hotels 23 years, and I really miss that interaction with the guests. But oftentimes when people talk about technology, not too many people are good at predicting technology. And I remember attending a general manager's conference in LA where Mr. Marriott publicly admitted one of his biggest misconceptions or errors when he was tasked to put some money and resources to building Marriott.com. He said that was never going to work. Why would somebody prefer to use the computer to make a reservation instead of talking to somebody? And he said that was one of the biggest mistakes he ever made, but after people insisted in making the investment, he gave up, and Marriott.com became one of the most profitable websites in the industry. So my question to you, ladies, is there something that you predicted or that you estimated, oh, that's never going to work, that you could publicly admit that you were wrong?
Let's see if anybody answers that question, because
Rich, I think the consensus is not publicly. In the bar later tonight.
every time I ask the biggest mistake somebody made in your role, they never answer that one either. So but it'd be kind of nice to hear. Hey, I have a question because there are a lot of vendors in the room and all that. There's a lot of mergers, acquisitions happening in the vendor community. Does any of that ever affect you and your roles or how you approach, has it caused any problems for you when one of your vendors or sort of vendor you're looking at is acquired by somebody else?
Yes, I will take that. We actually, our point of sale is Micros, and they were acquired by Oracle.
When did that happen?
September of 2 years ago. Not that I remember that day. But we had actually had a contract ready to go, and then they just wanted to review it, and the review turned into 4 months. You're all familiar with EMV and having to get to chip and pin, so we actually had to change direction literally midstream to get our systems compliant and painful. But you can't risk the company, and you just have, those are hard calls. And, people wanted to wait, and I just was not willing to wait. I said, look, we've waited 4 months, and the clock is ticking. So we had to make that change. Now, we do still have Micros on the merchandise side, and that's, X-Store is still running. But, when you get change of control like that, it's really challenging when you're used to working with kind of, really, I say mom and pop, they're a pretty big company, but they operated very mom and pop-ish, so it was easy to get things done. And as you know, Oracle is very large, and it's just a lot of moving parts, which they were trying to work through, but timing-wise, it just wasn't working. So that was one that we had to live.
And it's not just Oracle. I mean, there are other situations that have happened with companies getting acquired midstream or being existing customers. What's that? Did you want to add to it or anything? Okay. Any questions from the audience that we can throw at the panel? Don't ask anything about me.
Good luck to your pony this afternoon. Yeah. You guys are doing a really great job. I have a question around the kind of the convergence of the digital world and the IT world and how you see that affecting your role as IT leaders. I would like to reference a series of articles that Forbes has been publishing over the course of the last couple years where they, kind of controversial and intentionally pushing the envelope, but their position is that the role of the CDO, the Chief Digital Officer, has the potential to really come in and take away the power and the authority from the CIO. And their message to CIOs is, don't let a CDO steal the best part of your job. That's where the activity is, it's where funding is going, and ideally, more and more technology should become simpler to manage, so the innovation is happening in a lot of these digital areas. So my question to you guys is, do you have CDOs at your organizations? And if you do, how is that working? If you don't, do you think you need one? And what is your take on the concept of the CDO role being a threat to chief IT leaders?
Great question.
I'll start with that one. We do not have a CDO, and I think that the discussion about CIOs and CMOs is disproportionate to the amount of talent that CIOs bring to the table. And if you look at the number of different technology iterations that we have gone through in the past decade, and we've managed to adapt and adopt. So the question is, do you have the right people in your organization, in your IT team, that can adopt to digital technologies? It's not whether you need to change a title or hire a new person.
I would agree with that. We don't, well, in the previous with Omni, we didn't have a chief digital officer, but we worked very closely. My opinion is that digital is just another distribution channel. It's just another way of communicating and getting your content out there. And there's going to be others that are going to develop over the next 10 years, 5 years. It's going to continue to develop. And it's like Monika said, it's the collaboration and the continued education in technology. If we don't keep aware of what's going on in the emerging technologies and how they can help benefit and then translate that, like Darla said, into business value, then we're not doing our job as executives at the executive level. And so I think that's really critical in the partnership. We'll need to continue no matter what. And marketing has their role and their specific niche, and so does technology. But technology is broadening across everything, because anymore you can't do any functionality without technology.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add to that, because I very consistent. We don't have a CDO. We do have someone who leads the digital environment, and actually that individual sits at the same table as our global CIO. But one of the things we started a couple years back was we started a digital steering committee that has a cross-section from operations, digital, e-commerce, IT, and that group has a very interesting task of prioritizing all of the digital activities across Marriott on an annual basis. So it's not just here's the digital requirement and here's the funding we need. It is a group effort, and I think it just focuses on the importance of digital, but the fact that all the various groups actually play a role in how that's pulled through in the company.
I promised that we'd end the session on time, so I'm going to throw a question out for the four of you. This will be a little bit on the lighter side. So, imagine you could have dinner with anybody. Can't be a friend, can't be somebody you know, can't be a relative, can't be a family member, alive or not alive, anybody. Who would you have dinner with? You know, it could be like a celebrity or whatever.
Okay, well, I guess I would have to say Jesus Christ, because he's got all the answers.
That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say Pierre Burton. Do you know who that is? He's a famous Canadian, no longer with us, and a historian of renown. You'll have to look him up, Rich.
You know, I might say Condoleezza Rice. I think she's just a fascinating female, for one. I think she's done a tremendous amount, but I think she has a really interesting political perspective. She loves sports, so she's just this, just a personality that I think would be fascinating to sit down with.
I would say Jack Welch. I have a good friend that works with him through her company, and just the things you read about him and the things he's doing, even kind of out, in retirement, so to speak, is just pretty incredible. And I think we just have a lot to learn, from his past and experience.
It's always fun to end a session with a question like that because it kind of lends itself to the way people think. Again, I want to thank HTNG for inviting me to be part of this session. I want to thank our panelists. They did a wonderful job. How about a big thank you for our panelists?